Welcome to the Why Not podcast with me, Chrissy Hawkins. In a world where everybody asks you why, I'm here to ask why not. So sit back and relax or walk and listen and join me on this journey as we try to answer this never-ending question: what makes people say, why not? Hi guys, welcome back to Why Not. So today I have an interview with a strength and conditioning coach who works with athletes, but also most importantly, they actually work with horse riders too. So I know some people who listen to the podcast may not necessarily be horse riders, but they might take some benefit from it. But if you are a horse rider and you have been thinking about strength and conditioning work or doing some fitness work, this episode is for you. And it's really good to talk to someone who works with these people as well, just to show that I'm not just sprouting shite. There is people out there who are working with them, and he works with people at quite a high level as well. So I'm really excited to show this episode to you guys. I really hope you enjoy it, and hopefully it helps you if you are looking to do some work on your fitness as a horse rider. Enjoy this episode, guys. Hi guys, welcome back to Why Not. So today I have a guest for you. It is James Crichton, or Crabby. He may explain that nickname for you, he may not, but welcome to the podcast, James. How are you?
I'm very well, Chrissy. How are you?
Great. Thank you for coming on. Will you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so hello everyone. I go by the name Crabby, and I'm a strength and conditioning coach. Been a personal trainer / strength and conditioning coach for about 6 years now. Working more with athletes and general pop for the past sort of like 2 years. And only recently in the last 6 months, I've been working with horse riders, seeing a massive gap in the horse riding realm of strength and conditioning. And yeah, my sister working at a stables, Pippa Funnel and Will Funnel stables, two great British horse riders. And I just suddenly unintentionally started taking on all these horse riders, word of mouth. And I was like, shit, like maybe people just kept saying to me, they were like, you should make something of this, because is there anything in the horse riding sort of realm? And I was like, oh, maybe not. So I thought I'd sort of throw the kitchen sink here, and that's sort of where I'm going at the moment, as well as working with athletes in more of my favored sports, which is like football and conventional like martial arts and rugby or whatever. But I enjoy working with people and athletes from different sports, because it helps me be master at my own craft, and my aim is to help athletes be the master at their own craft as well. But yeah, now I currently work out of my gym that I built back in Surrey. I work online, and I also work since the last 3 or 4 months in a gym called Bounce in Wimbledon Park.
Okay, so you're everywhere basically.
Yeah, it's I got variety in my week. I can give you that. My week doesn't get boring. It keeps me on my toes.
What drew you to athletes over general pop?
It's a very good question. I love answering this, because I definitely started in doing what I'm doing because of what a big reason as to why personal trainers become personal trainers. Insecurity, want to feel valued, and that's definitely why I started doing it. And then I just got given a nudge by a few friends being like, you should do this for a living. So as everyone does before they go a bit specialized, personal training, fat loss. But what drew me to athletes and strength and conditioning is, one, my love for sport, two, my love for biology, albeit I did fucking shit at A levels. It was that bad that I had a tutor every week. She said I was going to smash it. I was even tutoring my mates. I got resat all 3 of them, and then didn't turn up to the 4th because I thought, what's the point? But I have a love for biology and the human body, believe it or not. And I've had more than a few serious injuries. In fact, one right now as well. I've broke my leg twice. I'm going to have my 3rd ACL reconstruction. So every injury that I've had has been a massive learning curve for me. And I've used it as an opportunity to learn more about my body, how the body moves, which is why I'm really big on biomechanics. And I get more joy out of helping people improve their performance than losing weight. But don't get me wrong, the two come hand in hand. I do have to help my athletes lose weight as well. But I guess it comes from a place of relatability, because I've never been obese. And in fact, I was the opposite. I was skinny, twiglet arms who wanted to pack on size, but going about it the wrong way. I can't relate with someone trying to lose weight because I've never had to. And as much as I can do all the research about habits and human behavior, it just doesn't excite me as much, probably because I've never been there. But I've always wanted to help people come back from an injury, maybe get bigger rather than get smaller, if that makes sense. But yeah, every like sort of injury I said has been a blessing, because it's just been a massive opportunity for me to be like, right, what can we learn here to help with you in the future, and also what you pass on to your clients.
Yeah, no, that's really, really good. So I suppose I'm possibly going to focus a bit more on the horse riding one, because I actually deal with horse riders as well.
Surprised me, 100%, Chrissy.
Here, no, like if you want to talk about football and rugby as well, all in on that stuff as well. I love the biomechanics stuff as well, so I always find that really interesting and learn about that as well. But so what kind of, like, the horse riding, was that because your sister that they kind of came into, you started seeing more people like that, or did you just kind of notice that it's not? Because I agree with you, there is a massive like gap with horse riding at the moment and strength and conditioning.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because it's one of the sports that's just a bit far behind. I'm sure you'll agree.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's like golf. Like, people don't see that you need strength and conditioning for golf, maybe because it's just not as contact. There's no contact. There's no contact in horse riding, really. It's just like there's no that. Yeah. Except, but there is at the end of the day, like
contact with the floor a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 100%. But it started. So my sister, actually, she's the last person I thought that would start training. Like, she just didn't like weight training, but she's had more than one, I say, osteopath or whatever, chiropractor, don't get me started on them, say to her that her spine's out of alignment, one leg longer than the other. And I'm just like putting a gun to my head, being like, this is not very helpful for anyone. It's not a great story to tell someone, because it just feeds into their narrative that they're broken. So I started when I remember it was literally like 6 months ago. I was in the pub for my mum's birthday, and this horse rider, Helen, who does a lot of 4 or 5 stars. I'm sure you're aware of 4 or 5 star events.
Yeah.
I wasn't until this year, so so it's nice to get into.
Was it eventing or show jumping?
I want to say both.
Okay.
I always forget this. What's the difference?
Show jumping, you just solely do the show jumping, and eventing is where you do the 3 days. It's like the horse triathlon. It's dressage, cross country, and show jumping.
Yeah. So Helen does eventing.
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, she does eventing. Yeah. And I know, like, some of the other horse riders, they'll either do just show jumping, but I work with horse riders that like do both.
Yeah.
Either do one or the other. Sorry. But yeah, Helen, massive eventer, and I just said, do you want to start up again? And I trained her when I wasn't training athletes. So she then started, and my sister sort of joined in, and I think that's what reeled my sister in, was because it was doing it with someone.
Yeah.
Just a brother telling her what to do, which, let's face it, like, training family, I've known to be just fucking nightmare.
It's hard work.
It's why I banned my dad and mum from, like, they can go in when they want. But yeah, it was basically that. And then like 2 other girls from the same stables that stay on site at Pippa and Will Funnels, they training separately together. Then these Americans came over to work with Pippa, and they were looking for a trainer. And then one of the girls, Fuzz or India, like, recommended them to me. So at this point in time, I'm thinking, over the course of a month, I'm like, well, I've got, like, do the math, 2, 4, 7 horse riders. I'm like, wow, this is like, and I'm noticing so many commonalities between them. It's like, and I don't mean this in any malice, you won't shut up about your fucking back. Like, all you do is moan about the back. It's like, Jesus Christ. Like, and the things they do when they come in the gym. So it's like, the first thing they'll go to is the foam roller, and they'll just basically open up their back and they'll lie on the foam roller. And I'm like, and this is what I've learned as coaching as well, is not to keep telling athletes that they're wrong. Like, not be like, don't do that, it doesn't work. What I've learned to do is let them do what they want to do, but slowly just like secretly dosage in what you want to do. And that sort of like combats what they're doing. And then they buy into it. and you go, well, what you're doing there is wrong because, or like, that's why it's not working, but you can do it if you want. So it was mainly based just noticing all these commonalities between them, all of the same interests, where I'm not saying Pilates is bad, but as an athlete, if you're thinking that Pilates is going to excel your athleticism, like it's a massive interpretation, because it's very good for movement variability. And for someone who's not done anything, Pilates will be really good. But if you want to develop power, if you want to be explosive, if you want to be strong, like Pilates alone will not get you there. And that's just fact. Like there's no gray area there. It's like black and white. So that's what kind of like, yeah, drew me in there. And I just saw like a massive window, and I'm sure you'll agree. Like, yeah, once you see something like that, you can't really like turn away from it.
Yeah. It was actually, for me, it was in my head for a long time, because I've grown up horse riding. So I've been horse riding.
Must have, yeah, seen it for a while then.
Yeah, 20 odd years anyway, 24. Yeah, about 24 years been horse riding. Like leisurely, like I'm not an athlete when it comes to that, but I was always thinking about it, and I was actually the owner of a yard in Dublin. They're an eventing yard, and he was like, why don't you do that, like for not necessarily the top level people, but like people who generally horse ride. And he was like, seriously, there's no one in Ireland doing it. Anyone who's doing it right now in Northern Ireland. So
really,
yeah,
wow.
So there's very little of it. Like, and obviously if you're seeing that, it's probably the same over in the UK. It's
yeah,
like we're always behind you guys on everything anyway. So
I've heard that. You're not the first Irish person to say that, to be fair. Even with COVID, like you guys were just like really far behind with like stuff like
no, we went way ahead on that one. We were like, no, close.
Oh no, but like with your health, I think like with like just dishing out the vaccine or something, weren't you? Like with the healthcare, like wasn't that good? Or was it, or am I mistaken? Or was it maybe?
I think we were slightly the opposite, in the sense that we didn't open up as quickly as the UK. But we hadn't got the vaccine out yet. So I think overall we did all right, but I think that was just a supply issue all over the world at that point.
Ah, fair enough. Anyway, let's not go down that rabbit hole.
That's over. That doesn't exist anymore.
COVID what?
Yeah, exactly. So what do you think, how do they react to do you find a horse riders like into like doing strength training and stuff like that?
Like anyone coming in something new, you have to somewhat create a buy-in without trying to explain why, you know, they should be doing this. And for example, like when I introduced them to a lot of the pogos and jumping up and down, most people that have never done it, they're like, what is the point in this? Like, I look like an idiot. Like, I'm jumping up and down on the floor. Like, this just looks silly. I don't feel tired. And again, it comes back to that associating severe fatigue with a productive session. Like, that's what they want. And I feel that, yeah, a lot of even athletes in any sport, they'll just try and throw themselves into a session that will leave them feeling like, you know, crawling on all fours. And that's going to be a good session. So basically giving them a little bit of what they want and then a little bit of what you want, and then you slowly just sort of like just do that little swap, and they won't even notice. It's like they're looking away, and then bang, you do it. For example, one of the girls that comes in, who's actually she's got a good training age, she loves back squats. Now I don't mind back squats, but an only back squat program's pretty fucking stupid, because it just sends you into that sort of like extended position, which you already have a horse rider moaning about their back. And it's like, you then want to, like, again, it's not the back squat that's making your back bad, but you're not helping yourself. So I'll just go, right, we'll do front squat one week, back squat the next, giving you what is missing. So when it comes to that, like, they then feel like they stop moaning about their back. And it happened, what was it, Monday? I asked my sister and Helen, I was like, so how are you feeling between when we started and now? Because I'm going to say one thing now, you both shut up about your back. And they were like, yeah, like our back's like a lot less sore. And again, it wasn't me just like trying to force them into buying into what I was giving them. It was like secretly just like planting seeds. And then with the pogo stuff and the stuff that they maybe don't see as beneficial, I might explain why. I'll be like, look, even though your feet aren't on the ground, even though you're not evidently jumping up and down on the floor, you kind of are jumping on the horse. Like, you're jumping up with it and you're having to absorb force. And I guess my go-to explanation is how well we move completely comes down to, or a lot of it comes down to, how well we can absorb, produce, and disperse force. And what I mean by that is when our foot hits the ground or stirrup, we basically have, at impact, we absorb force through our foot. We then produce force through our foot, and we also disperse it up our body. Now, if the force that dispersed up our body isn't dispersed properly, then it will become problematic at some point, you know, Achilles, knee, hip, whatever. So all this pogo stuff and jumping up and down is really beneficial because it's basically helping with ankle stiffness. It's making you more robust, more resilient to injury. And don't get me wrong, I won't program things like jumping as much as I would like a football player, because it's just not needed. But this is what I love about strength and conditioning, because I actually know very little. I'm trying to learn more about horse riding, but once you learn about the demands, the stress tolerance that they need, and what they need to actually sort of be able to, like, what they're capable of tolerating, then you can just sort of like program a really good training session for them.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. How do you find that actually coming in from that perspective, like that you don't horse ride? Do you ever find that kind of like imposter syndrome and all, or?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. And then especially when it hits me when I'm like training like pretty good athletes that, you know, they went to, see, the name even just bypasses me, Olympia. Yeah. Is that one of them? Yeah, like they went to that this year and stuff like that. So there is a little bit of imposter syndrome, but what I've learned with imposter syndrome, and I get it a lot less now, is because I just reinforce to myself that, you know, I back what I do. And but don't get me wrong, those beliefs definitely enter my mind because we're only human. But like, I then just go, you know what you're doing is working, so keep fucking going.
Yeah.
But you know what, it did make me realize, I was like, I definitely need to start actually going to a horse riding show, like, and take time out of my week to learn more about the sport, because it's definitely only going to help.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And have you been up on a horse at all?
Fucking hell, I used to horse ride.
Goodness, you have experience.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I know what Troy cancer is. No, I actually got a clear round, I think. It
just
was
the one.
Just the one. Yeah. I think I had a really bad fall once. When I can't remember what age I did it till, but yeah, I actually used to horse ride, so I have been up on the horse and I've experienced it firsthand.
Yeah, so that's a step in the right direction anyway.
Yeah, there you go.
It's funny, like, even I find, like, I have been horse riding for years, but say I'm not a horse riding instructor, and I'd be like, okay, I'm telling you this, I'm not a coach, but like, I absolutely get what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, 100%. What are some of the commonalities that you see across?
Well, back hip stiffness is real bad.
Yeah.
I think as well there's some bad habits taught in from before for sitting up straight. Like, instead of actually pulling your core up and sitting up straight, they bend back.
Yeah.
So 100%. That's one, like, if you don't have, like, you know, enough core strength, you're going to end up with back pain because, well.
Yeah. And that was the other broken record for me. It was like people coming in going, yeah, I've been told I need to strengthen my core. I'm like, you don't know what that fucking means. Like, no one knows what that means. Like, it's so, and I know there is an outright definition of what makes up the core, like the muscles that make up the core, internally, externally. But at the end of the day, you could have a weak ankle and that will be the weak link in your core. Like,
yeah,
you have a weak ankle walking down the road, someone will tell you, oh, you just got, like, you know, a weak rectus abdominis in, like, whatever. And it's like, no, like, the fact they're limping because they have a weak ankle, like, could be the reason so it's like all training is core training at the end of the day. And I think that people need to maybe identify or help, ask for help in getting an identification of, like, you know, what exactly, you know, is going on there.
Yeah.
Like, because, for example, a rib cage that doesn't move, I love referencing the rib cage because it really does dictate everything. If you've got a rib cage that is stuck, and people will talk about mobility of shoulders, mobility of hips, but hip and shoulder mobility is completely dictated by rib cage. So we always need to look at proximal to distal. And what I mean by proximal to distal is proximal is like close, this like chunky, meaty piece of bone structure, the rib cage. And then distals, you know, think of distance, like further away. But like if I've got my rib cage lifted, and most people are stuck in either like this elevated rib cage position, I can't get my arm overhead. But if I can get the ribs down, I can suddenly get my arms overhead. So a rib cage that doesn't move is gonna really influence how strong your core is.
Yeah. We also told not to move your rib cage if you're doing, especially in dressage.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be poker straight. Another thing as well is they don't, unless they've say broken something, they don't get injuries checked or looked after. Because if the stiffness goes away and then they're like, why can't I, you know, say move my arm this direction? I was like, well, probably because you've done something to it and you never sorted it.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, like this, like again, the backstory as to all of the upper body injuries that my horse riders have had, but you know, the amount of broken collarbones.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this would have prevented it, but again, think about being able to absorb, produce and disperse force up the lower limbs. We also need to think about the hands, because the hand is just another foot. Like we look at the arch in our foot and how when it's arched, it's called supination, which is when we absorb force. And then when it flattens is when we produce force. That's called pronation. The hand's exactly the same, like supination, supinated grip, pronated grip. Now, when we land on the floor like that, if we can manage collisions better, you know, we're less likely to break something up here. And that's what a lot of it comes down to as well, manage collisions. Like we're really, really bad at managing collisions. I always tell my clients, this is a big buy-in as well for the jumping stuff. I'm like, the most common cause of death over the age of 75, talk about delayed gratification, by the way, this is it in a nutshell. The most common cause of death over the age of 75 is falling over. So that's not being able to manage a collision. Collision can be running, it can be falling over. But like, to me, that just speaks volumes. I'm like, this is why you need to do this stuff.
Oh yeah.
Falling off a horse. I've never done that for like, well, not with the horse that land on me, I don't think. But like, yeah, when the horse lands on you, it's like, boom. You don't want to be brittle.
No, you really don't. Like, you don't want a half-ton animal landing on you.
Yeah, like it just doesn't sound fun.
Touch wood. So far that hasn't happened to me, but any other which way, I can tell you I've landed.
You have or haven't?
I haven't had a horse land on me, touch wood, but I have had every other which way. Feet, head first, back, shoulder, arse.
Oh God, have you any
face first? I've gone face first into the ground.
Any broken bones or
nose? And that wasn't from a fall.
Oh, what happened?
Headbutted.
What, by a horse or a person?
He's a horse, and he stopped dead in front of a fence, and I went. My instructor yelled at me to kick him. I kicked him. He jumped from a standstill. His head came up and smashed me in the face.
Oh, you know what? I've never been headbutted by a human being, but I can imagine a horse would be a lot fucking worse.
Full on neck, yeah. My nose was like a chip of it was gone on the X-ray, so like it was up like that. I had to get it like medically reset. Like it was over, and I was literally the size of a potato on my face. I don't have the same nose since I got that.
Oh snap! That's fucking that's awful.
So yeah, that was my worst one.
Yeah. The girls that would come in after a weekend or a week of show jumping or eventing, they show me the video. They got a WhatsApp group at the yard. They got people falling off. Like fucking some of them, I'm like shit. I couldn't do that.
And you just get back up as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you just get straight back up. I'm like, whoa, fair enough.
There's been times I've been so mad I've like literally gotten back up on them and be like, yeah, like instead of smartly checking myself, I've been.
That adrenaline's pumping. And you're just like thinking about like how angry you are, maybe.
Or there's other times where I have like the last time I think was when I went face first into the ground. He tripped. It wasn't on purpose. So he actually went face first into the ground as well. And I was like, okay, right, let's get up. I'll do a lap and walk. Right, I've gotten up. Now I'm going back. We're going to bed now.
Quality.
But yeah, that's the thing as well. Like you're kind of stiff the next day, and then after that you're fine. But you never get like follow up on it. But if your horse looks at you wrong, they'd call the vet nearly.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I find with horse people. It's like, oh God, he doesn't look great. I better get the vet up. While your arm is hanging off one side, going, nah, that's fine. That'll be grand tomorrow.
Yeah. It's all about the horse.
Yeah.
And that's one thing with like the programming and that I treat, I guess, differently between horse riders and other sports and athletes is the human body isn't fragile. So I'm gonna be careful what I say here. But when horse riders come to me, first of all, they're definitely more fragile, like whether it be mentally or physically, with their lower back. So I'm definitely leaning towards like programming a lot of feel-good exercises. And this could be like maybe like me being too like wrapping them in cotton wool, but like go to failure a lot less and stuff like that, because you are like what you go through is quite a lot, but not to say like again like other athletes don't, but I feel like mentally as well, like horse riders come to me with a lot of I guess beliefs about their body, which makes them more fragile, even though they probably aren't. So yeah, I'm definitely doing that with my program, which is really like good.
Yeah, I think with them as well, because they're so far behind with the strength and conditioning, like, if you want to improve your riding, you're taught keep doing it, the same thing over and over until it gets better. When if you actually went and strengthened a certain area, like, strengthen your body more, suddenly your horse might be more responsive to what you're asking them. But if you do something with them on the first session that has them, say, crippled for 4 days and they can't ride, they're not going to want to come back. Whereas an athlete, a footballer, like, oh, fine, I'll get back to it in a few minutes,
Yeah, 100%. So like trying to teach horse riders to deadlift, like really, really interesting, to be fair, because they're either like really scared to do it, or they just go, oh my God, feel it in my back. Like, and this is what I've learned with the lower back as well. Across like all clients really, is like I've really learned to be like, look, stop investigating everything. Like you investigating every single pain is not helping you progress in your training. Like it's going to hold you back massively. As soon as you associate like a movement with a pain, like you're going to stigmatize that movement. You're going to be very scared to do it again. So yeah, with the deadlifting stuff, it's got me to learn a lot of like pre-ritual deadlift exercises that I'd give, so they find their hamstrings and glutes more. Because a massive commonality I see with horse riders is when we talk about posture, I hate the word posture, but let's just do that for everyone's easier understanding. But I talked about elevating the rib cage, and most people like are stuck in the anterior tilt, elevated rib cage, and there's two common archetypes, that one, and one's called sway back. Sway back is more where I see in horse riders, where basically if you're standing up and you allow your hips just to like push forward and then you lean back, like it looks like a very comfortable position, even though actually it isn't very comfortable. It's just an easy position to hold yourself up and yourself from falling over. So I find that a lot of horse riders, like they have a very like shortened glute or glutes. So like trying and helping them finding length in the glutes and finding the hamstrings, that is really good for like with deadlifting. So like, yeah, working with horse riders is like really helping me just like be a better coach as well, like all round, because that will translate into other people who aren't horse riders as well.
Yeah, no, that's something I've noticed myself even, because I obviously think about stuff when I'm riding myself to try and like, because if I'm going to tell people what to do, I should be able to do it myself. And like my horse is like, your typical, like he would have been in school, except he kept throwing people off. That kind of like little fat kind of pony thing. He's not a big athletic one that the proper riders are riding, but it does make you work more and think more, because if you ask him to do something, he won't do it unless you convince him. And by convince, I mean ask him repeatedly. He's very difficult when he wants to be, but because of that, like I was looking at it and like, you hear people talk about, walking like John Wayne from horse riding. You shouldn't be like that. It means you're tilting forward and you're actually using your like adductors. Yeah. But actually, if you're firing your hamstrings and sitting up properly, you won't feel them at all the next day, and your hamstrings will hurt. But getting people to learn that as well.
Yeah, it's hard as well, because explaining it to people is just like not even enough. Like some people either want to do it or they don't, and the shame is like the big shame is most people just don't want to do it. They only find out and they only create that buying is when they're actually doing it and they feel it. So like me trying to sort of like kick this online adapt and do an equestrian program is proven to be very slow. Very, very slow. But I just feel it just needs to take time, and like making people realize. And I guess my biggest sort of like realization was when I found out that, you know, the person's biomechanics affects the horse's biomechanics.
Yeah.
There's this, and I've done a little bit of research. I don't know how valid this is, but you know, when a horse goes lame, which is effectively, I think, is like their gait. So like when their gait's fucked, basically, how they move, like your mechanics is going to affect that. So it's like you spend so much time looking after this fuck off beast, but like you won't take the time and invest the money, because let's face it, horses aren't cheap either.
No.
But you won't invest even a little bit into your health, which is going to improve them.
Yeah, that's something I try to get across to people as well, like, because it does transfer too. So like one of the things I say, for instance, if you've got like limited mobility, say in your right side, and if you're horse riding, I know if you've heard of bending work, where you're trying to get the horse kind of basically use slight little movements either side of the mouth to get the horse into the outline, which is that nice little head bent down.
Yeah, I'm unaware of that.
Yeah, so basically, if you're on one side and you're not moving as much, the horse is going to get that constantly, and now you're constantly putting more pressure or less pressure onto one side, and you wonder why your horse is bending beautifully when you go in a circle on one rein, but on the other side it's got its head up or something like that, and you're like, it's because you're doing it to it. The horse can't take the aid. So I've been trying to like as well, like explain that to people when I'm going at it, going like, it's not just for you, it's for your horse. Like, you're spending fortune on physios and stuff for your horse, but you're not looking at yourself and what you could actually do to improve that.
Yeah. And that's the thing, when they do invest into themselves, it's like you're going to a chiropractor, which there are some good chiropractors. I've never met one. I've never come across one, but it is a bit of a charlatan industry at the moment because of the information they give. No, because it's all about clicking and realigning. And it's like, the way I put it out is if you could literally manipulate someone with your hands, like we would have NFL players that literally wouldn't have rib cages and the spines intact. Like, think of how hard 110 kilos against 110 kilos are being met, but they're still not realigned, like they're fine.
Yeah.
So to be able to pay 50, 60, 70 fucking quid for someone to go click, crack, the spine's out of alignment, it's like, fucking hell, like we're just wasting their time and money. And that's the very frustrating thing, because, you know, one, it's just an easy thing to do, to go and do that. It feels good. So again, just because something feels good, people correlate with that being good, which is massive misinterpretation. But yeah, rather than actually like, you know, get something that's going to give you like this massive return on investment. I also think that, this isn't me being sexist, by the way, a lot of girls come to my gym and they're like, I don't want to get bulky. Like, if we train arms, like, I don't want big triceps. I'm like, fucking, here we go. Here we go. And it's that's also a massive friction in between a lot of horse riders and going to the gym, I feel, as well. They're like, I want a good body, I want to look like this person, which this person who they've shown me, by the way, has like, you know, athletic legs. They're like, oh, but my legs, I don't want big legs. I'm like,
you can't have one.
You've literally just contradicted yourself.
And as well, I find horse riders have big legs. Unfortunately, it's what we use most. Like, it's very rare. And the reason a lot of horse riders are very lean is because they probably don't eat enough in the amount of physical work they do. Yeah,
that's a big barrier as well, is trying to find, because at the end of the day, I wouldn't want to eat a big meal and then just go up and down. Like, it just doesn't feel very good. But you're right, they definitely don't eat enough, and there's definitely ways around it. You just have to adapt their schedule. Like, one of the Americans I trained, she would only have dinner, and then she'd say to me that she's gaining weight, or she's not losing enough weight. And she's a great figure, by the way, very athletic. And I'm like, no, we need to eat more. So I was like, we definitely need more protein in your diet, because, you know, you train 3 times a week with me, you're very active. So, you know, I said, what's your favorite meal? Like, what's an easy go-to meal that you can do in the midday, that's going to be feasible and it's going to let you adhere to it? She was like, cheesy eggs. I was like, bang, there we go. Every day, have that. And that's worked. but it hasn't in the end, because like she's eating more and then she's coming back to me saying she's gaining weight, and she's very emotionally attached to that. I'm like, let's forget about the weight. Don't fucking weigh yourself, because it doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean shit.
Yeah, no, I think as well, like people who are working in yards, like it's not just the horse riding, it's the mucking out, it's the bringing the horse in and out and stuff like that. And people are like, don't understand that. It's like you need to fuel yourself better for that. It's so incredibly physical. You do a day in a yard and you will be bollocks for 2 days. I did it for a while, did a couple of weeks. I used to do a Monday and I would recover by Wednesday.
Yeah, you know, I don't envy them. I envy you as well. Like, it's like, they do, what are their days? You know, they get up at 5 or 6, and then they get in they finish at 6:30. Then, you know, once a week they'll come to me. And then, you know, because horse riders are time constrained, they don't get to go out all the time. But because we live or I'm from a village and they live in the village, they've created like their own bubble. So literally their time is at the stables or at the pub. And, you know, so they're going to the pub, say, eating out at least 2 or 3 times a week. They'll have drinks, you know, sometimes it'll be 1 a.m. finishes. Then they'll end up going to Guildford on a spontaneous night out. So also trying to tackle their sleep is an absolute nightmare, because it's like, and then they're like, oh, I'm not sleeping very well. But I'm also like, well, on the days you're not, for example, going to the pub, you know, what are you doing? They're like on my phone till like 10:30, 11:30. Well, I'm like, well, that's just fucked. Like that needs to like be reduced, blah, blah, blah. So like they've got a lot of habits that I've never had to really like deal with head on, which is good. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And I've learned to be like, right, rather than change everything, we just need to make the smallest change, which is what you should do with every client, as you'll know. Small changes, like more success. But with them, it's like, right, we literally just need to focus on this one thing and don't worry about anything else at the moment. Like just focus on this one thing, because you're so caught up in doing like everything else, which is hectic. Like you don't stop in your day. Like everything's done mostly on a subconscious level, very little conscious thought. Like, so for you to think consciously is going to be really fucking hard. So just think about doing this one habit.
Yeah, no, I agree. I find that as well with them, like, you know, when they say I don't have time, like you actually have to believe them.
Yeah, I've definitely like way more empathetic. Like I'm an empathetic coach anyway, but I'm definitely like, yeah, I totally understand. Like you're way more time restricted than most people, 100%. But that doesn't mean to say it's impossible. But like you have to show more sympathy, definitely.
Yeah, that's what I find the online has worked really well with them, because they don't have to be like at the gym at 7 o'clock, because they're like, no, sorry, that's my horse time or that's my unwind time. I've just finished spending the day in the yard, like I'm knackered.
Yeah, it's what I want to do with this sort of equestrian adapt and develop is, you know, market it so that like you don't have to go to the gym. Like most of the exercises we're doing are going to be like, you don't even need equipment. So even if it's just like a 15-20 minutes twice a week, jumping, breathing, rolling, body weight strength work, which at the end of the day is going to be really challenging for you anyway if you don't have a good training age. So it's like, yeah, it's that would be really helpful for a lot of them.
But that's everyone I've worked with. None of them have gone to the gym. They've worked from home. And like that, we have like, you know, the weekly check-in and stuff like that. And even then, sometimes it'd be so busy, you'd end up rearranging it 4 times in a week. Like,
yeah, 100%.
But I thought it was interesting that you said about the girls not wanting to get bulky, and that's literally something I still hear as well. Like, and it's not sexist. It is like, I've had people say it to me, and my response is a lot of time is like, what about me? Am I bulky? And they're like, no. And I'm like, great, because I've been trying for the last 5 years.
Yeah, I say like we produce X amount of testosterone more than you, which is the massive drive for muscle mass. I'm a guy. I have more muscle mass already. I've been doing this for 10 years, like 3 to 6 times a week. Like if it was that easy, I would look like Arnold. Like, and I'm not. I'm actually, how long I've been doing it, I'm actually relatively like small compared. I always take the piss out of myself. So I'm not that big. I'm not that strong, but like I lift weights consistently. Sorry. So like, if you're doing it once a week, you think you're gonna get bulky once a fucking week? Oh, you're mistaken. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's really funny. It's like, seriously, you don't look at the weights and turn into Arnie. Like, I swear, like, you know, a lot of those people who look like that have had a bit more help and some really good genetics, but not just the good genetics, you know.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah. It's kind of why I love introducing them to power training as well, more explosiveness, because even though they have the sensation of, oh, I'm not working hard, like once they actually can express themselves by moving a lightweight really fast or themselves really fast, you do start to feel really good, because your level of output in a short amount of time increases. You're like, oh, this feels like it's doing good. So it's not all lifting heavy weights. So there's, and that allows me to give like a lot of variety into their training as well.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. What are the biggest challenges you found working with them so far?
Oh, they're fucking terrible texters. Oh my God. I know it's got nothing to do with training, but they are so bad at texting. It's unbelievable. I always say this as well, not with all horse riders, not speaking to everyone here, but I'm like, with them, it's like, I think because they live in this bubble, them specifically, they don't realize that like I'm trying to program my week. I have to actually, even though they know this, they don't think about it. I have to actually like plan when I get the train home, blah, blah, blah. So when they take me 3 days to respond, I'm like, you need to text me back. Like, this is like ridiculous. So yeah, terrible texters, but on a more training related answer, I'd say it's a very good question, to be fair. Like they're the schedule, I say the schedule, that's the most challenging thing. Like I could say, oh, like it's very hard for them to buy into what I do, but that's like inevitably going to happen at some point. Like that's just the starting sort of barrier. But I'd say it's the schedule, trying to fit them in. Their week changes, my week changes, but like I'm trying to obviously work around them, but trying to get them in consistently is like really, really hard. But that's totally, I know what I'm signing up for here. Like, I know that, which is why I'm not taking on any more face-to-face horse riders. That's why I created the online. So I don't get let down. They don't get let down or anything. But yeah, that's just like the variable that you just can't control. Like it just comes with the package. So
yeah, that's the thing as well. Like what was the saying I saw before, which is really like, it's true to horse riders now. It's like, horse riding, it's the only sport where your equipment can decide to disagree with you.
That's so true. Yeah, I like
that. So like you can plan your day great, and then your horse can be like, you know what, what I'm going to do to you today, or I'm feeling a bit poorly.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, what's the one thing that you found to be most challenging?
You're right about scheduling, and that's me working with people who are online, and the texting actually, because I'm a terrible texter as it is, and these are worse. And you're trying to like be like, okay, are we still good for this day? And like an hour before, they'll be like, no.
Yeah.
Can we do a different time? And I'm like, great. I've been sitting here for like a couple of hours waiting. At least I'm just on my laptop or whatever, you know what I mean? But yeah, those two things are big, all right, as well. I'm trying to keep them sticking to a schedule, because something comes up or a client appears, or because some of mine have worked, like our people who worked with worked in the industry as well. So like, he's like, I have a client now, actually, sorry, I've actually meetings, I did that and the other.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. Yeah. You get used to it, don't you? Exactly. At the start, I was like, oh, fucking hell, like, because I'm sure you're the same. Like, you like your week to be like there in front of you, like you've constructed it. Soon as things start to change, like on a large scale, I'm like, oh, like, this is really annoying. Like, because I had everything planned, everything looked good. And then when things change, like, yeah, I get myself a little bit worked up, but now I've just learned to deal with it and be like, it's fine. Like, you can't control it, so stop fucking sweating over it.
Yeah, like there was one I was working with over like a course of 8 weeks, whatever, and our check-in day was Tuesday, and like every Tuesday it would be like, can we do Thursday instead? And it got to the point where I was like, okay, well, we go with Thursday, and they'd be like, no, Tuesday's fine, and Tuesday would roll around. I'm like, well, I see him Thursday. Yeah, I'll see him Thursday.
Yeah. Quality.
But once you expect it, I think it's okay. Do you know when you're like, you've already figured that out?
Yeah, I just go into my week being like, look, this is probably going to change, so just take it.
Yeah. once it's not like, I think it's easier with the online side of it, because once that, it just means you just have to open your laptop at a different time. But like if it's like with you being, we're doing face to face, like that is a little bit more.
Yeah.
I'd get more mad about that.
One time, like I prioritize, so the people that I train 3 times a week, they sometimes need to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday because they're going to a show on Wednesday. So I'll literally like rearrange my week. So I'm home Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning, which that's not normally my schedule. I've normally got PT back in Wimbledon. I think I have to like give up 1 or 2 sessions for the week because I'm doing that. And it'll get to Wednesday morning, they'll be like, we can't come. I'm like, yeah, fucking, like I've literally just rearranged. Like if we just did Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, it would have been fine. Or we just said Monday, Tuesday. But literally, the only reason I changed my week was because you said Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And like, yeah, so bite my tongue.
Next time they say that, you'd be like, you can have Thursday.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, 100%.
How do you find working between like doing the face-to-face and the online?
I really like it. I like the fact that I can, like, I'm someone who's big on going away. I haven't been able to go away much this year because I've just moved and stuff like that. But I'm very big on taking like mini retirements. So like, I want to be able to go away for 1 or 2 weeks, 3 or 4 times a year. So being able to just drop the face-to-face and be like, look, I'm going away, still got the online, like digital nomad, love it. But even then, like, because I've got my own gym, like what I'm intending to do is the people that I train at my gym, I'll be like, look, I'm going away for 2 weeks. You can use the gym, charge you X very small fee, or charge you for the online price, whatever. And then that's just extra income. And I know then that I'm not leaving my business just like on pause, like I can keep it going. And that's what I love about online, like pivoting during COVID. That's what I had to do. I'm sure that's what we all did, or most of us. So yeah, I like the balance between the two, because I used to be the person who, I've never worked like 40-hour weeks.
Okay.
Because I've never worked in a commercial gym. I actually, up until this year, never worked in a gym for 5 years. Like I built my business out of my gym. Everything was in the very undensely populated area of Walliswood. So that's a hamlet. So it was all self-marketed. I never worked with colleagues up until this year. So the most I ever got to, I think, was like 25 hours. And I did my first ever 9-hour day. And I remember people used to gloat over that, like had done, 10-hour days as a PT for like, there is no fucking way any PT can do even more than, I'd say, 4 hours a day for 5 days a week and say that every session is good quality, in my opinion anyway. Like maybe they're like, I'm not tired, I'm conditioned to do it now. I dispute that. I've learned to be like, look, I can, which is the online is really good because I can afford to do that now. Like I can afford to do, say, 15 hours of PT a week and then the rest online. Sometimes it would maybe 20, but I'll never go over 20.
Yeah.
And the online's helped me sort of like believe that as well. And say the face-to-face does go quiet, I'll just put more into online.
That's fair, yeah. Would you go solely online?
So, funny, that's a good question. So during COVID, when I was part of a business mentorship, and then obviously face-to-face just was not allowed. When it started winding back into, us getting let out of solitary confinement, basically, I was very reluctant to go back to face-to-face because I was like, look, I want to be like everyone else here, like who's like making X, Y, Z online. But when I was living in Sutton, I found myself, I look back now, I'm like, fuck, what did you do in a day? Like I had a fair few clients, but I definitely should have been doing more face-to-face. But because I'd conditioned myself to just like wake up when I want, work when I want, but I'm so glad I started to take on more face-to-face because I love the human interaction. Obviously, like it really does help because we're social animals. I also think that when I learn something and make it applicable, like I definitely get the concept more if I'm doing it in person and online. So I would never go just online now. Like obviously when I go away on holiday, just online. But when I'm back here, I do value the face-to-face, but only to the hours that I want to do. Yeah. Do you do both?
I do both as well, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I think so as well. Like, I think it's great. Like that is, you do get to see other people. The online is great, but you do end up being very just,
100%. Like I definitely glorified online when I was like, oh, they just get to do what they want. But it's like, there are so many fucking hours in the day and there's only so much online takes up, in my opinion. Like, it doesn't really it takes, not to say it's easy, because it isn't, but if you think that, you know, you're going to be working like 8 hours a day online for 5 days a week, like, not to say anyone should, but it's like, it just doesn't take up that much time. And I don't think it's as fulfilling because, you know, people go quiet. It can get very frustrating as well. As you'll know, people go quiet for ages. They don't report back to you. So yeah, just, I think the balance of both. And I always question the coaches that, and I know this because when I was in the business mentorship, I'm sure you're aware of Phil Graham.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in Authority Network. I was in his business mentorship. It was basically for the coaches that wanted to earn as much money as possible and be in the business as little as possible. So I dispute any coach that has 100 clients and says that every client's getting like a good quality service, you know, for whatever they're paying. I'm like, nah, because if you're outsourcing everything, they might be getting a good service, but you're just a fucking knobhead. Like, there were people in that mentorship that were going, how can I outsource programming? I'm like, my God, like, programming is the bread and butter of personal training. And this is the chip on my shoulder I have with a lot of coaches now. I'm kind of going off on one now.
You're going to go for it.
Not everyone, sorry, I need to stop saying that. A lot of coaches are trying to be mental health coaches, nutritionists, all of that before becoming, you know, better at what they're actually meant to be doing. And that really like just pissed me off. And that's why, you know, trying to just go online, like, I didn't warm to it, because I do like the learning more and applying it into face-to-face, because you just get it more, and you can see through a much better lens than someone who's probably not giving you videos, because it's a pain in the ass to try and get videos of people in the gym, or trying to look from a shitty camera angle. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I get you. So when you said someone asked me about outsourcing programming, I'm like, that's literally your one job.
Yeah, like this one girl, I wasn't in the mentorship when this happened, but I know a couple of people still in it and were in it. And they were like, this one girl came in, she used to be an accountant. She gave up her accountancy job. She obviously had a lot of money, and she, you know, went straight. The whole big thing about Ian is make 10K a month, which a lot of people do, to be fair. But she like started making 15, 20 within the first month. But her outgoings were like ridiculous, because she was literally outsourcing everything. And apparently she put in the group, she was like, something along the lines of like, how can I outsource everything so I can go live in Bali? I was like, I was just like, I can't believe that. Like, this is why the industry is just full of absolute like zealots. Like, come on.
Yeah, no, that's true. Do you think it's too easy to become a personal trainer or coach?
Yeah, 100%. Like, Pat Davidson put it so well in a post. He was like, the reason that there's so many bad eggs in the fitness industry because there's such a big room for improvement, such a big room for error. If you compare that to a doctor where it's so small, or a teacher or a dentist, like the room for error is so small, like you can't really fuck up too many times before you get found out and, you know, like, yeah, have your credentials taken away from you, whatever. With the personal training, you can get away with so much. Not only, and as well as it being so easy, you know, with the standard of level entry, like that's why too many coaches will use their PT level 1, 2, 3, whatever it is now, as their, you know, as their leg to stand on for being a good coach. There is nothing that I learned in PT level 1, 2, and 3 that I'll do now. Nothing. The only thing that I learned, and I now don't even believe that because that's a crock of shit, is how to put a weight away safely. And even then, there isn't a safe way to put a weight away, because we're then stigmatizing spinal flexion with picking up a weight. And I know, like, yes, like people like, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole deadlift technique now, but you can't call a movement inherently dangerous. And if you think that picking up a 12 kg dumbbell is going to do your back in, like that is wrong. But that's pretty much the way you passed your PT level 2 and 3. Like if you picked up the weight wrong, like they would have failed you. Even my strength and conditioning level 4, which I would deem to be like, you know, pretty good. That was fucking easy. And that was spent a day of just learning how to Olympic lift. And Olympic lifting is probably the last thing you give an athlete. But it was a big part of passing that.
Yeah, when I did strength and conditioning cert, that was pretty much what it was, Olympic lifting.
Yeah,
I haven't Olympic lifted in years.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to be fair, I love it because it got me into it. Like, that's what got me working with my coach, Angus. But, you know, I'd only program maybe like one, maybe two small variations, but I'd never program the full lift unless someone actually wants to do it and they weren't an athlete. I'd be like, yeah, we can do it, which I do at the moment. But I'd never be like to an athlete, right, we're going to learn how to snatch because it's optimal for output or rate of force development, because it isn't. Like, and it's high risk to reward ratio, as you know. Like, this probably the reason I fucked up my ACL the second time, is because I was playing football and Olympic lifting. I was doing two sports at once.
Yeah.
My body would be beaten. So yeah, it's like, and then even some of the stuff you learn about mobility in the strength and conditioning, I was like, well, that's just a crock of shit. Yeah. So it's like, to answer your question again, yeah, the reason is because it's so easy to get those certifications.
Yeah.
But it is really hard, and it takes a lot of like realizing what you don't know to go and go, right, I need to fucking learn more. And this is why a lot of coaches succumb to the Dunning-Kruger effect. They're totally unaware of what they don't know. And the reason that I've always been like enrolling in courses, mentorships, always got a coach, always will have a coach, is because I'm sure you're the same, Chrissy, I'm fully aware of what I don't know. Like, sometimes I'll learn a concept, I'll be like, I've got this, like, this is sick. And then I'll either not get it or something new will come along and I'll be like, right, I feel stupid now. But that's
every time I learn something.
That's exactly what it should be like. That's what feeds the hunger. That's what keeps you hungry.
Yeah. I find like the coaches that sell the most aren't necessarily the best. They're just the loudest. Yeah,
100%. They got no, and there should be no shame in doing it all the time. They've got no shame in selling. They're very good at selling. They're very good at marketing. Yeah. And it is always, you look at, again, those coaches in Authority Network, this might sound big-headed, but I know for a fact I was the best coach in there from an actual like coaching standpoint. They were just very, very good and much better at me than selling and marketing.
Yeah. Also, I went through a program last year. It was a shred program, so I knew it was. I signed myself up for, and they're talking about this, talking to people who were signing up for the shreds, like, you know, multiple times a year, and they're like, don't keep doing it, don't keep rebounding, but we're going to take your money every time you rebound, because they're women who are like, yeah, I lost 20 pounds on this shred, and then I stopped and I put them back on, and now I'm going to back again. And
because the reason that I put it back on is because I'm not with them, and that's the story they'll tell themselves.
And I followed the meal plan, and
yeah, it's the same with Slim World. It's the same with all of that.
Yeah, and there was one or two things that I was like, the coaches in that group as well, most of them weren't even PTs, like, as well. And they weren't the one who owns the business. She's not a PT either, but like, she gives you like basically a bodybuilding program off what her probably coach designed, and so this is how you train to get like this. And then there was girls halfway through the shred going, oh yeah, no, like, is anyone else like, you know, period not gone? And the coaches are like, oh yeah, no, that's fine, that's okay, that can happen. I was like, no, it's not okay. I'm sitting there going, guys, this means your body's under intense stress. You need to eat more calories.
That is hectic. That is
and like, you've got these women literally telling them that's fine, don't worry, you're on low calories, that's okay. Like, it's not okay.
It's amazing. So yeah, I wouldn't sound like fully competent about, you know, knowing about a women's menstrual cycle.
No, I'm not either.
I'm very astounded as to what I know, and a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be like, do you know this about blah, blah, blah? And they'd be like, oh no. I was like, fuck. Like, yeah.
Oh, I couldn't believe that when I saw women telling other women, like, that's fine, don't worry.
That's obviously not, they don't know they're doing it. That is so toxic.
Yeah, I was like, yep, and this is why I'm never buying anything off you again.
There you go. Yeah.
I went into it because I wanted to do a shoot, and I knew I could handle it better. Like, you know, they were saying if you follow the meal plan, I think the meal plan started at 1,600 calories or something. I was like, fuck that for a laugh. I'm starting at 19.
Yeah. So like, you knew what you were getting yourself in for. Like, yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, no, this is not good. And these people are coming and they're spending like, you know, it's a big group program. So they're spending, you know, 100 quid every time they join, and they're doing it a couple of times a year because they got the results, but you didn't.
Yeah. Shiny object syndrome. It's a bitch. Like, especially if it's worked. Like, yeah, that's a big seller. Like, if it works, it works. But people don't realize that what they're basically doing is they've got they're in a dilemma of them being the consumer. You got the product, but the product is keeping them away from the actual method of what gets them to.
Yeah. Like if it worked, you wouldn't be doing it again.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, that's just a mini thing. You set me off on my rant. Actually annoyed me.
I love it. I love it.
I think that is pretty much everything I have to ask you, but I do ask everyone this at the end of every episode, and it is, what is the best advice you've ever been given? I love this one because everyone gets like confused.
Yeah. Oh God.
You can pick more than one as well.
I would probably say, and I'm gonna kick myself because I'm gonna come off this call and be like, "Oh, you fucking idiot! You should have said that." But I'd probably say, actually gonna post this. It's probably why it's in my head because I'm gonna do a post on it now. I'd probably say this helped me in my personal development. Is for every group, and this is in my words, not how I heard it. For every group you create that fucking despises you, you create a group that fucking loves you.
Yeah.
And that's basically really helped me form me as a coach, because when I was coaching every client, I was going into most of the sessions like being like, fuck, like I've actually got to gear myself up for this. I wasn't looking forward to it because they were dickheads. Or like when I was posting content, I'd be like, how can I make sure that I don't like tread on anyone's toes? Like, because I don't want to piss anyone off. And it's like, no, like you need to use you as a filter. And for the people that are literally like, what are you doing? Like, you can't say that, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's not professional. They just fall through the fucking cracks. But there'll be people that will love that authenticity. Like, they'll fucking love it. And it takes a long time to be like that. But that really helped me with my delivery, my content, and me as a person.
Yeah, no, that's really good, actually. I don't know if you've come across this yet, but maybe you will soon, especially with horse riders. They are waiting to tell you you're wrong.
Yeah, I can kind of believe that, to be fair. I'm probably going to come across more, but yeah.
I've been corrected on my form in joke videos because they're so ready to tell you you're wrong. They haven't even realized that I'm making a joke.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what? Unsolicited advice is so fucking interesting. Like, someone dropped into my client's DMs the other day, and she was doing cleans, and she was saying, I think, on her story that she was getting bruises on her shins, and he was like, "You shouldn't be getting bruises on your shins." She was like, "Okay, why?" He was like, "This doesn't even make sense." He was like, "It means your knees are going over your toes." I was like, "What the fuck?" I was like, "Yeah."
And he was like, your knees can't go over your toes. You know that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it was just like unsolicited advice. I'm like, yeah, some people just, yeah. Whether that comes from an insecurity, I don't know. But it's just like, if I didn't ask for it, you can fuck off.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's one of my best performing videos, and it is a joke video. So now I deliberately make it shown that it's not actually, like, I deliberately make, like, when I post it, that it doesn't look like it's a joke, to get people, because it ups my engagement. But it's literally like practicing rise and trot on the chair, and it's done to, you know, up and down by the Venga boys.
Yeah.
So literally go into the pace that, and people are like, "You're not sitting right, you blah blah blah, blah blah," and I'm like, "Okay, right." So how do I do that on a chair? I also usually don't rise trot to the Venga boys, but do you?
Some people, that's what I mean. People just like take things too seriously on social media as well. It's like, lighten up, like, not real.
It's so funny, but it's great for the engagement.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Brilliant. Right. So just before you go as well, where can everybody find you?
So I guess I'll just plug my Instagram page. That's where I'm mostly active. It's Crabby's _corner. CRABBYS_corner. I am on TikTok. I think it's the same, but I literally go on it just to post the same thing. So you'll get more from Instagram. Yeah, and that's it. Yeah,
brilliant.
once you click follow, you're in, by the way. Like, I literally, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I actually specifically followed you over on my horse one because I'll actually see more of the content.
Yeah, have you got 2 pages?
Yeah, I have 2 pages because I will plug them while I'm at it. So I have Chrissy H Fitness, which is my original page, which was kind of general fat loss stuff. And then I have Strong in the Saddle, which is specifically horse related content. So on Instagram, it's Strong in the Saddle with an underscore because someone got to it before me. And then on TikTok, it's just Strong in the Saddle. And that's where you'll see all like horse related content. A lot of jokes that equestrians will get. And then my website is www.chrissyhawkins.com.
Oh, your website.
Yeah, right. It's a very bad website, but it's there.
Yeah, no, I love that. Oh, I've got one more page actually that I've just opened up. It's called Equestrian Riders Club. Me and my pal Brent from Newcastle, who's a movement specialist, started that for literally just like specific horse riding content. And what you'll find, everyone, as well, which is really weird about the content, I'm bringing speed training to horse riding. So how horse riders sprinting fast can help with your horse riding, which sounds really silly, but like, yeah, in a simplified explanation, it's like one of the best ways to build and develop joint strength and muscle resilience. So like hamstring strength and all that. So yeah, it's something that I'm trying to like bring into the horse riding. So they're like, oh, what's this new thing that? So yeah, speed training for horse riding.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm going to go follow that as well now to see that. But yeah, thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It feels refreshing to be on a guest of the podcast. I haven't done it in a while, so thank you very much, Chrissy.
Thank you. I really do appreciate everybody who listens to this podcast. So if you please could help me with the algorithm and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And even, you know, if you want to reach out and suggest topics for me, I'd be delighted to hear from you. Drop me a DM on Instagram or TikTok. And thanks again for listening.